Hey, with this video, Amanda and I are going to go through tone and why tone matters, especially in sales, but tone matters regardless of the communication. Amanda.
I will want to say in some ways, depending on your relationship with the person that you're selling to, you can get away with more or less depending. So if I were selling to Lynn, I could be pretty much as sarcastic as I wanted to be because Lynn knows who I am and she knows that I'm not being a jerk. But if it's a brand new client I've never met, I want to pull way back on the sarcasm because they don't have a relationship enough with me to know that I'm joking. So really knowing your client and knowing that relationship ahead of time will make a world of difference in how your tone comes off in every aspect of the words, what you're going to say.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because I have a quick story that's coming up, and this wasn't a sales call, but this is a great example of tonality. And it was that you also, I think, in my opinion, you need to be cautious if even the people that you are that you know and that know you, because depending on the mood that they're in, or relationships are always you don't know
Evolving.
fully what, yeah, and you don't know fully what level you're at. So you are going to be your friendship dynamic is going to be as least as the one who thinks of it as the least, if that makes sense. So I'll give you an example. I used to run a networking organization, and I had a leadership team that I was friends with. Like, I spent a lot of time, we joked all the time. And on a call, I made a joke to one of them that normally it would be like something that he would say, and he got so offended by my joke because he was in a bad place. He didn't like the tonality that it came out, and it was really, I overstepped as a leader. I got too comfortable in that conversation. So with that being said, and pull out, like, it was mended. However, especially in sales, because sales is going to be a very different dynamic. They want to hand over, that you want them to hand over money or a credit card, that you really need to always work on the lighter side, but still be authentic to who you are.
Yes. A good example of this in my world is often, and if you read the first book, you know that this is a trigger for me. When people say, I'm just too busy to do XYZ, and that's why I can't sign on with you right now, I'm too busy. To me, that's a trigger, because whenever anybody says they're too busy, I just go crazy in my brain. So I have to pull back on that, because my initial, immediate response that I want to make is are you too busy? And if I say that to somebody in that way, they're immediately going to go on the defensive, because now I'm being argumentative and I'm purposely I'm telling them with my words that I think they're full of shit, and that's going to come off immediately on the defensive. So I've if I do that, I already know I've lost the sale, unless it's a very good friend. So the way you say things, like when you're retorting, when you're coming back with some of these obvious objections, even if you know in your heart that they are full of it, bring it back, reel it in. That's not good.
Well, and one thing that I want you to keep in mind too is tonality is not just in the voice, right? It's also in the words that we choose. It's the pace that we choose. And I know that I'm broadening it because technically tonality is the tone, but you got to look at the whole picture here, because in my opinion, it's the tonality of the situation and the tonality of your reaction, right? The tone in your reaction, not just the tone in your voice. So your body language. And I was kind of smirking when Amanda did that, because Amanda really does do that. She's like, really? And and that is her personality. I have a smarty pants personality, sarcastic personality as well. And so I know that I have to watch certain things, especially when it triggers. So what we're saying is tonality matters. Tonality is not just in the tone of your voice, especially when you're in the sales process. You need to watch your reaction, your body language, your eye movement, your the way that you use your words, the words that you choose, all of that kind of encompasses tonality. So another way that you could answer that, instead of, especially if you're triggered about I don't have the time, what would be another way, Amanda, that you could answer that is in a different tone, even if you're using the same words?
Well, instead of saying, really, I would say something like, I completely understand how it feels to feel overwhelmed and to feel like you have so much on your plate. I have been there many times. I feel like I was there last Tuesday, and this solution could really help alleviate that. I know exactly where you've been. So coming at them from an angle of, I get it, I understand, I empathize, I know that feeling or what you're trying to say. Like, even though I don't believe in those words, I know what they're trying to say, that they're overwhelmed, that they don't know, they've lost their sense of self. There's no personal time at all. I understand what they're trying to say, even if we're using different words to say it, because their like idea of too busy might just mean that they have a lot on their plate, not necessarily that they don't actually have time to do it, which is what always triggers me. So knowing what their intention is behind their phrase, rather than beating them down because of the way they're saying something, and semantics is what it comes down to in that way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One thing that you do need to be careful of, again, I was chuckling to myself because with Amanda, we know each other so well, is also in the tonality. We have to watch the condescending kind of like tone, because sometimes, especially when we're triggered, we can have that underlining tone because and it will come across. And now some people appreciate that tone, and that's okay. If that other, but again, you don't want to, even if they normally appreciate that tone, you want to kind of dial it back a little bit. Another way to help with tonality too, but this is also where you have to watch it, is asking questions, in your responses, to say, I hear that you say that you're feeling overwhelmed. What would make you feel more grounded, or what would make you feel right? So, and just think about almost like softening the tonality, like a monotone of the tonality, can really help you redirect. And it is okay, especially if you're triggered, to take a breath, allow that silence, and then respond. So that way you can fix your tonality before it comes out. So tone,
and hopefully also fix your face before what you want to say.
One thing I got to be careful of, because I definitely have the RBF. And if you don't know, Google it. But so this is our little snippet on tonality. I'm sure we'll give you more. Listen to our podcast. I know we'll be talking about this on our podcast. Read our book if you haven't read that chapter. I think a few of our chapters, we kind of talk a little bit about tonality in this book as well. So working on and observing our own tonality, even outside of the sales process, will help really direct our communication a lot more in the positive direction, regardless if it's sales or not. So it's a great tool to start working on.
Absolutely. Get after it.